follow a lesbian couple on Instagram, and one of them is not like super skinny, and you can see all these hateful comments on her body, and now she is pregnant. So there is like the intersectionality, you have like, she's a lesbian, she's not skinny, and she's pregnant while in a lesbian relationship. So there is all that kind of mean stuff under the comments, and she had to take a break from social media because she was not having it at all.
I think we all need sometimes breaks from social media, especially because it's setting for ourselves expectations that are not real. And also I found myself, especially right now with all the skinny talk and skinny Instagram stories that I'm seeing, I do feel very sad because it's going back to Tumblr in 2010 when I was seeing all the girls holding their hands like this and be like, oh, I'm doing a body check, it's just a silly body check, but that got into my brain. And I will stop eating, I will stop looking after myself, I will just feel sad and not fitting into the standard that I put myself into my brain, because there is no real standard, but we are putting it in our brain and we are thinking, oh, I want to look like that celebrity. And then you find yourself not being able to because you don't have all the resources that they are having, and then you get frustrated, and all the hate comments that you see online, and people, as you said, talking about people not being skinny enough, not being pretty enough, not being, I don't know, even if you're too skinny, they have something to comment all the time. So you can never really make the viewers happy. So I think we should all just try to make happy ourselves before the people in online, because at some point you realize that even if you make a category of people happy, there are still going to be haters, and there are still going to be people that are not going to agree with you.
Welcome to Future Chronicles, a European podcast created within a 2-year Erasmus Plus project where young women and allies expose gender disinformation, unpack how it spreads, and share how we can resist it. From the margins to the center, reclaiming our narratives, rebuilding trust, and strengthening democracy.
Welcome to Future Chronicles. This is a podcast where young adults and partner organizations across Europe are working together on one question. What happens when disinformation targets who you are, and what can we do about it? I am Sebastian, your host, narrative strategist at Traces&Dreams, a Swedish company working for a wiser tomorrow through the power of stories, literacy, and knowledge. Today, you will meet the people behind the Future Chronicles project and the youth whose stories sit at the center of this series. So, Amalia, you are the coordinator of this project. What problem are we trying to solve, and why is it important? What made you initiate this project?
Thank you, Sebastian, for these questions. When I first thought about writing this project almost 2 years ago, the idea stemmed both from my personal experience and from what I was observing while reading newspapers or scrolling through my social media feeds. After finishing my studies, I started working at a small research center, and I was in charge of the press review, and so every day I selected articles to share in order to gain an overall picture of the international situation. After a while, I began to notice some recurring patterns whenever the news concerned women in politics or journalism or academia. In some cases, their work was relegated to the background. What attracted attention was how they managed their private lives, whether they wanted children, whether they had or were looking for a husband, or whether there were authoritative male colleagues to whom some credit could be attributed. In other cases, especially when it came to politicians, activists, or scholars working on issues of social justice, these women were ridiculed or infantilized in order to downplay their struggles and demands. So the focus was placed exclusively on their appearance, on aspects of their private lives to be judged, or personal traits that could be weaponized against them. So as one scrolls through the news and pauses to look more closely, it becomes immediately evident that when a woman speaks out on issues such as the climate crisis, gender equality, inclusion, reproductive justice, and so on, her voice is often undermined through some strategies. For example, the mockery of personal characteristics. We can think about Greta Thunberg, because she is consistently being ridiculed by the media, or strategies like distortion of information, with false news frequently circulating about past or present statement, or more recently through images, deepfakes generated by artificial intelligence, very often with a sexualized undertone. And that's what we call gender disinformation in this project, because it's explicitly targeted to women or other minorities that speaks in public about issues of social justice. So why gender disinformation? Because all these strategies serve to discourage women from speaking in public about what they believe in, because usually what they believe in could have transformative effects on the system in which we live in. So these strategies, moreover, also silence those who might wish to speak in public. So they are afraid of becoming targets of gender disinformation, because let's not forget that these issues has extremely serious implications for people's lives, especially for their mental health.
So you say gender disinformation. Could you explain a little bit what that means and what is actually the difference between disinformation and misinformation?
Yes, there's a big difference, because gender disinformation is disinformation that uses the category of gender, often with, for example, sexualized shame, gender stereotypes, or also hate speech, violence in real life, that makes someone withdraw from public life, because they are targeted for the fact that they are women or they are from other groups that usually are marginalized, while misinformation is when a false information is spread by mistake. So it can become disinformation, but misinformation doesn't have the intention to harm specific groups of people just for the fact that they are women, for example.
So the difference is that misinformation can be done by mistake, while disinformation has more of a tactical reason.
Example as a purpose, and the purpose is exactly to undermine the voice of people who speak in public for issues of gender equality, social justice, and so on.
Hello, I'm Aleksandra from Journalists for Human Rights in North Macedonia. We joined this project and we are really happy to be working with 5 other countries from Europe on a topic so important, because democracy is something that we all strive as citizens, but also as NGOs when we work on different topics. And this topic is very close to heart to our organization, since we've long worked on media democracy, gender equality, and human rights reforms. And in the path that North Macedonia is taking towards European Union, we are trying to inform the citizens. And when half of the society is excluded from conversation through harassment or smear campaigns, democratic participation becomes unequal. So this was one very important goal that we saw, to work together with the other organizations in Europe and empower youth to recognize what matters when we talk about gender, to find the differences, how gender is portrayed through social media, and to empower them with tools and knowledge how to counter gender disinformation and how to fight for a more just and more democratic future for youth throughout Europe.
My name is Roya, and I am going to talk a bit about two layers, which is the personal layer and the career layer, which made me join this project. When I've heard about it, when I joined the company, I was very, very thrilled, because for me, I think the most important thing is to make women and girls around the world feel safe and to feel like they belong to this world and to never feel ashamed of their gender, because I was once a girl that felt ashamed to be a girl because the stereotypes were very strong in the community I grew up in. And I feel like Romania overall, as a country that just escaped a very undemocratic system, healed very difficultly after that. So our parents, our grandparents, they were all still very fresh to the new democratic idea. And when I was looking at the news and I saw all the women being teared down for all the wrong reasons, I felt very sad. And I was like thinking, what can I do in order to make the life of other girls and other women better? So I think my main reasoning for being here and for trying my best is because we want to make sure that women are not being judged for things that they cannot control, such as their bodies, how they are dressing, and to let the women just live.
My name is Ali from Slovakia. I'm representing the organization European Dialogue, in which they focus mostly on media literacy and information literacy, and specifically in how it affects active participation and democratic resilience. So this was our main, let's say, topic for many years, but it was needed that we have an input or a lens to view disinformation from the perspective of gender. That's something we all knew sort of in our organization, but we didn't have a project or, let's say, an outlet to kind of develop and like learn from that as well. So joining this project was a no-brainer in our case. We were like, okay, we have this experience and now we can learn and invest in something that is quite crucial, because we understand very well how disinformation works, and we teach about disinformation, malinformation, misinformation, and we know the harm that it causes. But when we also see the layers, or when we talk about gender or intersectionality, we can see that it multiplies that effect even more. So us joining this project was very crucial for us to see how, through a specific perspective, how the effects of disinformation can be even more brutal for our target group. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.
I'm Nadia and I'm from Spain. I'm representing Jovesólides. And for us, it was so important to join this project because gender disinformation is something that I was already seeing in my work, especially affecting Muslim women. Their voices are often attacked through stereotypes about religion, gender, and belonging, which makes participation in public life feel unsafe or impossible.
And I'm now going to invite our youth participants, the voices who are at the center of the Future Chronicles, the young people who joined the international workshop in Valencia to learn more about gender disinformation and helped shape what you would hear across this series. So would you please do a quick round of introductions with your name, your country, and one reason why you have joined this project?
Hello, I'm Sofia, I'm from Italy, and I joined this project because I wanted to learn more about gender disinformation and how to counter it.
My name's Tino, I come from North Macedonia, and the reason why I joined this project is because I've seen that not a lot of young people, especially young men in our country, are very much interested in how women and girls are depicted in social media and the news. And I wanted to learn as much as I can and give my personal experience in this topic of what I've seen my friends, family, and other people go through throughout my life.
Hello, my name is Grazia and I come from Romania, and I joined this workshop because I believe I want to understand better the root cause of the problem here and try to understand how can I solve this problem, how can I communicate with the others and spread the information correctly and not spread disinformation.
I'm Ihor from Slovakia, and for me, there were a bunch of information, and of course we analyzed the mechanics of gender disinformation and basically how people coordinate attacks to silence specific voices. And the whole project for me were digital, creative blueprints for building a digital world, and that actually works for us instead of against us.
My name is Omayma, I'm from Spain. I wanted to understand why certain attacks online felt so targeted and personal, and why they affected some people more than others. So that's why I thought that this workshop will help me to understand better these dynamics in our society. And I thought also that it would be more reachable to do it between different people, different perspectives.
So, Omayma, you told me about the workshop. Can you tell me a little bit more? What did you actually do in Valencia?
What we have worked through that week, it was very ritual for every one of us. It went from fake news to Islamophobia. So I think the trajectory that we have done, it was very meaningful for every one of us, and also it has a deep meaning in every context of each country.
I liked the way we got the information, because we used to misunderstand the meaning of like disinformation, the word, and of course like a lot of information about gender disinformation.
So before the project, when you heard the word disinformation, what did you think it meant, and what has changed for you now?
So before this project, I mostly associated disinformation with politics and extremist political parties. And I didn't realize about how far it can extend beyond that. Through the workshop, I realized that disinformation affects many other areas of life, especially gender, identity, or personal rights.
Thank you. I wanted to ask also Sofia, was there a moment for you when this topic stopped being abstract and became personal?
I think it really became personal or real during any kind of a political election, because you see so many topics being manipulated by politicians and mostly by far right movements, like for example race, Islamophobia, like Maya said. So you see basically everywhere during this political election, during our election in Italy, or how we see now Trump in the USA. So the more and more you pay attention, the more it became real.
And for you, Tino, how was it for you to meet the other participants in Valencia from other countries?
I think it was really amazing the way it was all set up, because we have different personal experiences, of course, and come from pretty different countries when it comes to politics and how people think. So I think that all of our experiences together, all the things we had to share with each other and learn, not only from the participants from the other countries, but from the people in Valencia itself, where we all met. Everything we had to share, from disinformation to Islamophobia, as the past participants said, I think it was an amazing experience.
And was there something that participants from other countries told you that surprised you, something that is maybe different in one country from another country or so?
I think the main part is how, to the root of it, we all have really great similarities between us. Even though we have the differences of which everybody speaks, we have really deep similarities, and somehow our systems are similarly set up to the point where it's the patriarchy, it's the way people would get the disinformation. So I think that I'm more interested in the similarities than the differences.
Thank you. And Ihor, you come from Ukraine, you now live in Slovakia. What is for you, what are the differences that you see between the countries, and is there something that you can pinpoint, or also similarities like Tino said?
Actually, like the thing I like that we are all people and we are all like the same, of course. And I liked like different stories from different countries.
Is there something like some practice or something that makes it easier for you to speak about gender disinformation in public, and that you would like to share? Like it could, for example, be supporting each other, or it could be to have some kind of consent within a group, or like a group agreement, or is there something that you can share?
I think that the comfort feeling when you know that if you are willing to speak up, you won't be confronted and shut down when I feel most comfortable speaking on the topic, because I don't fully need the other people's support. I just need them to listen to me and hear out what I have to tell them.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
I want to emphasize what Tino said and thinking about how it's harder or safer to speak about gender disinformation. What makes it harder is not knowing the opinion of other people around you, especially in uncontrolled environments. And there's always the fear of being judged or misunderstood. But it feels much safer when there's a shared understanding, a clear group agreements, or a space where people are open to discussing these topics without prejudice.
What do you wish adults in media or institutions understood about how these gender disinformation attacks work?
I wish they understood that they affect real people, that it's not something like digital or something that only happens online and you just post something fake and nothing happens, because everything you do, everything you post, everything you like has an effect on real people's life, on how they live and everything.
I think that they should remember that even though their youth has passed, these types of informations can still affect the youth, even though probably if you're an adult and already have like a stable job and have already passed most of your life, you don't feel the same way as the youth will feel, because some of us can be really damaged from all the disinformation, and then that could stop us from growing as people into adults.
Yeah, and I wish the adults in media or institutions could take this gender disinformation more seriously, or raise awareness about it and make it very understanding how harmful can it be. Because if it's ignored or minimalized, the negative impact can be huge socially, for example, or on their mental health or the sense of safety.
I wish they understood that it's not about hurt and bullying, and they have to stop advising things like just block and move on, because we have to understand how these platforms allow coordinated attacks to happen in the first place.
I agree with what they have said. I also think that all of us, we have individual responsibility in terms to spread information, but also that is comparable to in the case in online platforms, but also when we are between our friends or family.
I'm going to move on and use this opportunity when we are all here together and see if there is something that you would like to ask each other.
I was thinking about the question, Tino, when you look at your own social media, what are the most common patterns of disinformation or hate that you notice?
I think that the most prevalent one is disinformation in the form of memes or jokes, where on first glance you won't really understand how deep it could be or how damaging it could be to other people, and you see it as a joke. But once you see it repeated multiple times and the way it's used, you then understand how actually damaging it can be towards other people.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you, and I can confirm that there's a lot of subtle hate in memes or different type of jokes, and they basically normalize discrimination without looking openly aggressive.
Yes, and also I think it's like an international thing, because in Italy we have it, in Romania we have it, you have it in Slovakia, everywhere. So it's like a strong pattern here that needs to be countered from the basic. Yes, I would like to ask everyone, how do your friends react when you try to talk about gender disinformation with them?
Usually, like, they just keep this problem, and this problem is not heard, so that's it.
I think that at least my circle really like to talk about the problem, but never want to come to a solution, because I think that it's too much of a commitment for them to actually think how they could be a part of sharing this information. They just like to talk about how this information is surrounding them.
Yes, I can also agree that it really depends. Sometimes they are hesitant and they see it as something distant or exaggerated. But some of them, they tend to be curious and open, and those conversations feel very encouraging.
I agree with Grazia. It also depends on the type of friends you have, but in general, it gives the image like maybe you are the pessimistic one in the group because you are always talking about the same topic. But also, this gives you the role in your friends group that you are the one who is interested in this problem. So every time they will see something on social media or wherever about this, they maybe remember you or text you about something like see the new law about this. So sometimes this also makes you like the points they maybe go to ask.
I think this is really interesting what you are touching on, Omayma. And could you tell me, how does it make you feel when you become this expert in your friends group?
It depends on the situation. I think sometimes it could be something stressful because it gives you like more responsibility that you maybe have the power to support. Sometimes it gives you this self-esteem.
Roya, I have a question for you. When institutions hear about deepfakes, online abuse and all of this, what do you think what blocks them from acting faster?
That's a very good question. It's also tricky because in Romania, even though we have the resources when it comes to protecting people online, and we have the legislation basis for that, not only just online, but if someone comes with harassment issues on street, like if any case of harassment, they do have the legal basis for that. Unfortunately, usually they are seen as things that are just going to pass. So usually when you call the police to tell them about an issue like domestic violence, they sometimes laugh at you. They say that it can be that serious and family issues should be resolved inside the family. So you are being discouraged. For sure, you are getting very sad and discouraged when it happens like this. But I think it's very important to keep the positive perspective that if you are prepared and you know what your legal rights are, to use them and enforce them as much as possible, because otherwise no one else is going to take things serious in your place.
I think there's also like a geopolitical dimension to it. You probably know that, Trump is making things quite complicated for Europe. And if Europe has more legislation, if there is more rules controlling what American companies can or cannot do, this triggers Trump and it might trigger a trade war. So I think unfortunately, you are in the middle of also a geopolitical tension. It's not, even if the European Union would want to have better legislations, it might be tricky for them to do it.
I totally agree, and I think many people don't really see the international aspect in all the issues that are arising in other countries, especially young democracies, because you have that idea that other very long-term democracies are going to come and help you and support you into implementing democratic values in your country. But then what happens is you see them and they are not very democratic, because after all, they are looking at what they want to get, and what they want to get out of your country is not resilient people that are fighting for democracy, because that's a bother. They want someone that could do what they want you to do and not really complain about it. So I think the international value is very important, because we do need the support of the European Union, but also the danger of other countries outside of European Union is very, very big. So I'm very happy you mentioned that.
One of the problems is also that these technological media companies are not considered political actors in the international system, but they carry with them an ideology, they create culture, they create the laws, because they can set the trend in society, they can set the trend in global culture, since we live in a globalization framework.
I want to actually ask Amalia, how does she think that the involvement of young people in this project, what is the result of that?
It's also funny because we as project managers are still quite young. Not that young, but we are in our late 20s, for early 30s. So I think we are totally embedded in the problem, in the changes that they are in the world. But now we also have the tools, since we have economic independence, or we have a job that can let us do something. It's like an alliance between young people from different ages. But going back to the question and wanted to give you a specific answer, I think that what really changes is the sense of distance. In that sense, I think it's because many young people start out to feel that politics, media, institutions are somewhere else, not meant for them. So when they get involved in projects like this, when we have the chance to gather in presence, in during the workshop in Valencia, they realize, and we realize in general, that our and your everyday experience of life is not your private problem, but a political one, a collective one. So it narrows the distance between us, between people of your age, between people of different ages. And also, I think it can give you a sense of self-confidence, because sometimes we think it's pointless to do something because we can change anything, because we are so small in a world so big, and there are issues so challenging, so complex, that we can't do anything. But in reality, we can, with small steps together, and we can see it when we meet.
One question really stands out for me, at least. Can I ask you if you could design one change in how schools or even your universities, because some of you study mass communication and media, if you could talk about how they could change the topic of social media and disinformation, how would that be? So how would you design it for your peers, or how would you like to have seen it in school? Because I think this really helps us as youth workers as well to see what can we design for this.
I think that the first thing that comes to my mind is actually teaching something. I'm talking about middle school or high school, about teaching something, because at least for me, or at least I think in Italy, there's not a single course, there's not a single word spoken for social media, how to use it, how to navigate the internet, or even now how to use AI, for example. There is absolutely nothing. So you're like just there by yourself and you don't know, you're just messing around, I would say. So actually speaking a little bit during lessons about how to use social media safely, knowing that you can fact check things, or knowing that you can actually control your own feed in some space, will be a great change for starter.
What Sofia said, it's pretty much the same in my country. We don't have any formal education on like social media and how to understand that world and gravitate in it, because I don't think it's taken as seriously as many other like subjects in the world. I don't think it's almost like they don't want us to know so that we can fall prey to like disinformation and to their tactics of manipulation and propaganda.
I want to add, like, I liked this project because of like practical skills, not just theory. Like the university is all about theory and those things, so we can't use, like, we know the information, but we don't know how to use it.
I also wanted to emphasize what Ihor said. I also wish in our country it would make changes about social media and disinformation in a more practical and honest way. For example, instead of abstract lessons, schools should use real examples from social media and talk openly about emotions, not just fake news, but how content makes you feel and react, and focus on the psychological reactions.
I personally didn't find myself not posting something because I was afraid of the reaction, but I mostly think it's because I think I live like in a filter bubble. So it's like all the people I know and all the people that follows me on Instagram, for example, I know they have my same opinion. So I kind of feel free to post it because I created myself for this bubble that I know that I'm not judged for what I'm posting. But at the same time, I know that it's not completely okay to do so, because we need to interact with other people. We need to interact like with people that think differently from us, because otherwise we can live in a bubble forever.
What is the value of being part of a community or a conversation such as this one?
For me, is having the support of all of these people and having the opportunity to share our knowledge. So it's not like something I keep for myself and nothing else. I get the opportunity to get to know the knowledge of all these people from different countries, from different perspectives.
I'm not the only one interested in this topic, because in our country, if somebody is interested, they don't really speak up. And to see that there's like a community of people who are trying their best to like share the information they've learned, share information from their country, even share like personal experiences, I think it's really empowering for me and for other people to know that I have like kind of this group of people that share the same ideas as me, and I can come to them and speak on different topics and know that I'll be understood and not shut down.
I've been dealing more with community lately, like in making projects, and I found that accountability the community kind of brings into is quite important, in the sense that if I do something wrong, I expect from my friends, from the people around me to be like, hey, that's not that great, you can change it a bit, you can adjust. And people have sometimes issues at receiving accountability, to be accountable for your own actions. People take it to the ego and into like personally, and it's no, you're okay, you're as a person, you're just fine, you're just doing something that disrupts the community. And holding each other accountable sounds sometimes a bit, I don't know, it sounds like a hot topic, or maybe someone can maybe misinterpret it, but it's just about keeping us okay with each other, understanding boundaries. And it's very important in the community that we do that in a healthy and proper way. Because there's also ways that people count accountability in a wrong way and enforce it. No, it's not that. It's to adjust, and it's dynamic as well. Like things change from day to day. So accountability for me in community aspect is very important.
I can just add to what Ali said and what the youth said, that with accountability and community comes the strength to change society, because then we are a louder voice that can demand accountability of institutions and of those who are responsible for implementing the moral grounds and the basis of how our society should look like and how we would like it to look like. Because we know that very often what the people voices are doesn't end up to be in the ruling layers of democracy. So basically we are now learning and teaching and practicing democracy in its core, because we are seeing how voices that join together can multiply a wave of change that can be a positive outcome to any society. And when it starts from the youth, then it's a progress that can multiply very, very quickly, because they are the future and they are the ones that will be the leaders, the future leaders. So.
In the coming episode, you will hear stories and insights rooted in 6 countries, different contexts, shared patterns. And I would like to take this next step to ask our youth participants who are creating podcast episodes a little bit about what will your episode be about? What will we hear from you?
I'm Sofia, I'm from Italy, and our episode will be about exploring how language is not neutral and it needs to be analyzed in a social and political context. So we are thinking about choosing some words and analyzing it and deepen our knowledge about it.
In the Slovak episode of the Future Chronicles podcast, brought to you by European Dialogue, we will speak with Ingrid Borarošová from the Bratislava Policy Institute, and together we will reflect on the position of women in Slovak society, the stereotypes and challenges they continue to face, and how public debate shapes everyday realities.
The North Macedonian team will be doing an episode talking about empowering, self-empowerment, and how we can empower the people who are getting bullied online for presenting themselves a certain way. They're getting body shamed because they're in the public eye, and especially as young adults and teens, how that could affect them.
So the Romanian team will do in a natural way, speaking about the experience of us women about femicide, domestic violence, and victim blaming in diverse situationships.
Hello, I am going to talk about what our national episode is going about, and we have focused on gender Islamophobia, how Muslim women are targeted through disinformation that mixes racism, sexism, and fear of religion.
I will also tell about the Swedish episode since they are not yet here. So, as you know, the 3 Swedish girls there are teachers and they work in 2 different schools. And they are conducting a study right now, like asking the female study students to share stories about things that have happened to them. And with this, we are creating the podcast, and we're trying to make a meeting with the local politicians and share these stories with them, and try to have a conversation about this is the problem, what do you want to do about it? How can we collaborate? We don't want to hold them accountable. We want to collaborate with them and see what we can do together with them. And with that, we are coming to the end of our first episode of our Future Chronicles podcast. A new episode will be released every 2 weeks. Find Future Chronicles on your podcast app and on the project website.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to the Future Chronicles podcast, an Erasmus Plus project with Sinergie Italy, Traces&Dreams Sweden, Jovesólides Spain, and Europejski Dialog Slovakia. Journalists for Human Rights, North Macedonia and IVC Romania working together for gender justice across Europe. Future Chronicles challenges gender disinformation and supports young people in resisting it through education, storytelling, and civic engagement. Future Chronicles is co-founded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. The views and opinions expressed are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union or the European Education and Culture Executive Agency. Neither the European Union or EACEA can be held responsible for them. If this episode resonated with you, share it. If you'd like to connect or learn more about the project, please visit future-chronicles.eu or search for us on social media. Thanks for listening.